Boy, we sure do love our celebrities. What is it about our celebrities going to trial that makes it so incredibly interesting and we can't seem to look away? Just not that long ago, we had Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp, and that was a fiasco. Very entertaining. But what exactly did we learn from Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard? Well, one, we learned that Johnny Depp drinks a lot of wine. Two, my personal favorite, Amber Heard took a dump in Johnny Depp's bed. Pure entertainment, let me tell you. Let me reiterate. She took a dump in his bed. So, the moral of the story is that our beloved celebrities are basically just like us. They're completely flawed. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we can't seem to look away. And we want to see these big figures go to trial and just to see what happens. That's entertainment. Am I wrong? Well, we're about to get another dose of the celebrity trial drama. Because P. Diddy, as you know, went to trial and was served a sentence. And it was a huge, giant celebrity trial. But recently, in fact, today, Netflix just released a documentary called Sean Combs' The Reckoning. And it's executive produced by an old rival, 50 Cent. Now the question is, why did Netflix need 50 Cent for this documentary? Because Netflix is amazing at their documentaries. And they know how to put it all together in, the best possible way. So why do they need 50 Cent? And that's what makes this tidbit a little bit extra juicy, because what exactly is 50 Cent going to put in this documentary? Are we going to get some extra footage, some insider information? Because 50 Cent's from New York. He's definitely well-versed in the music industry, has a lot of connections. That's what makes this partnership between Netflix and 50 Cent, I think, extra special. I think this documentary is going to be pretty darn good. But the Sean P. Diddy Combs camp is pushing back on this documentary. They say it's a wild hit piece meant to destroy his credibility. And where exactly did they get some of these videos? Because the Combs camp is saying that these videos were kind of basically stolen. And of course, Netflix addressed the situation and said, no, they were all gotten legally and yada, 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 yada. But if they're saying that about some of this footage, then most likely this footage is footage that's not been seen before, very personal footage of, a glimpse into Sean Combs, a glimpse into his history, the real history, maybe from an insider that would know more than the average documentary. Because why would they say this footage was stolen unless no one else had seen it before and it was from the Sean Combs camp? And, maybe they didn't want that footage to be seen. So how did we get it? Possibly from 50 Cent and an insider in the New York music game that maybe, juiced it up, gave us even better footage than we would have gotten if it was just Netflix, as good as they are. Okay, I'm definitely getting ahead of myself and completely speculating, but my point is there's a very good reason why Netflix teamed up with 50 Cent. He opened some type of doors, at least told them where to look, at least had the knowledge, insider knowledge, so I think that's why this documentary is going to be extra good. And so if you're not familiar, P. Diddy was facing life for his alleged crimes. The crimes he allegedly had done were racketeering and conspiracy, sex trafficking, as well as 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The 2 larger crimes that would carry the majority of the sentence, that would give him the most years, were the racketeering and the sex trafficking. But surprisingly, he was found not guilty on both of those. But he was found guilty on the 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. He was sentenced to 60 months, or 4 years and 2 months. Basically what the charges were was the racketeering and conspiracy is using his label, his company, Bad Boy Records, essentially to systematically commit and cover up crimes. The sex trafficking charge is probably the worst, and it alleged that he used force, fraud, or coercion to compel individuals into commercial sex acts. But not guilty on that. The 2 counts of conspiracy to transport a prostitute basically means that he was transporting a prostitute across state lines. When you're going across state lines, the charges jump up quite a bit. That's basically what it means. The 2 individuals that he was found guilty for having done this to was his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, and another woman named Jane. And he transported them across state lines for the purpose of engaging in prostitution. That's the crime he was convicted on, and he got 60 months or 4 years and 2 months. That's the trial and crime side of the documentary, but the documentary is quite extensive. It's 4 episodes that are each an hour, and the first 2 episodes are, about his come up and how he dominated in the industry. as well as the entire Tupac and Biggie situation, which has kind of been dissected, and people talk about that 24/7. So each episode is well done. It's they all have their own hooks at the end that makes you want to watch the next one. Yes, they do talk extensively about who killed Biggie and who killed Tupac, the two most beloved rappers, the whole East versus West Coast thing. I don't know if they make the accusations or they just present, the information in a certain way. It does make it seem like, maybe Puff Daddy had something to do with it. He was at least in the vicinity. I mean, they're all insinuations, so I really can't say anything about it. I don't want to make the accusation. I'm definitely not doing that. But that's the real lemon's juice of the squeeze, if you get what I'm saying. Like, that's the juicy part that people seem to gravitate towards. But in all honesty, in my opinion, all of that stuff it's very interesting and good, but it's almost like I've heard so much about it. They've been talking about that forever. Like who got him and who shot him and all that stuff. But the documentary presents new information like the Puff Daddy come up, which I found to be much more entertaining. And then, the pieces about the trial in regards to like how he approached the trial. And when they explained kind of the pieces of the trial and the whole Cassidy situation, I mean, it definitely didn't make him look in a good light, certainly. But I don't know, man. It just made it seem like a little bit lighter. Like it wasn't as bad as we thought, because we thought he was doing all kinds of nefarious things and the whole freak off parties. And, there was a conspiracy talking about, recording people and maybe using those recordings against people. They didn't really talk so much about that. One of the things that struck me about the documentary was some of the video right before trial and as he's going into trial and how he's just so incredibly versed at controlling the narrative about what's being said about the trial. So he has a number of employees relatively aggressively go out and try to speak to social media, vloggers, and people that would be covering this type of information. So I'm covering it, so it would be someone like me. He didn't talk to me, but that's my point. And in this day and age, it's not about what's on the TV news and what they're saying so much as it is about reaching the social media. If you can control the narrative through the social media, then that's where the majority of the people are getting the majority of their information. So that's what he had them do. He had them go out and talk to vloggers and people covering to try and feed them his narrative, or at least feed them information that, what type of business mogul would he be if he wasn't trying to control the information and influence it at least a little bit in his favor? Because after all, he's on trial and he's facing life. So they were very aggressive about trying to control the narrative. But I found that part very interesting because you're looking at a master at work because he's very good at it. He's been doing it his entire life. And that's what helped him with his come up, because he's so good at putting his face out there or influencing what people think. That's at least what the documentary implies, that he was spinning narrative maybe. Another thing I want to point out is if you didn't look into this trial, like what you're going to get when you watch the documentary, a close look, examination, you probably would have assumed that he was just guilty. If you just heard that Puff Daddy got accused of this heinous crime and you heard it through the news or the grapevine and you didn't really look into it, then I bet most people probably would have assumed that he was completely guilty and, and whatever, and then it was out of their head. Documentary, as extensive as it is, and it is produced by 50 Cent, a rival, towards the end it seemed pretty unbiased, and it kind of had me thinking that some of the crimes were not as bad as originally what you would assume them to be from just hearing about them. So I think the documentary is definitely worth the watch if you want to dig into Puff Daddy and his whole situation. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I definitely did not know about going into it. So there was a lot of stuff that was uncovered that I was just discovering. I'm not well versed on the Sean Combs trial by any means, but I found each episode to be very interesting. So I would definitely recommend you take a look at this Netflix documentary on Sean P. Diddy Combs. It's called Sean Combs: The Reckoning. It's very good. It's on Netflix right now. I think it dropped yesterday. Give it a look.